Hello, my drunken Buddhas. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about why a bottom-up approach is necessary for healing trauma. So I'm going to contrast it with the top-down approach and then talk a little bit about the key reasons why it's a necessary part of your toolkit if you're looking to heal your own trauma and transform your life, essentially. So the top-down approach refers to the top of the brainstem, which is where our kind of like rational and logical capacities reside. So those kind of approaches are a lot about taking a cognitive perspective and reframing beliefs or like narratives and things like that. Whereas the bottom-up approach refers to the bottom of the brainstem, which is where our control of our autonomic nervous system resides, which is our core survival responses, fight or flight, freeze or fawn. And that is a much more body-based approach. So it's all about the felt sense of the body in the present moment. What kind of sensations and emotions and responses are going on there? And key to this is understanding what trauma is. A very broad definition is that it's any kind of undigested emotional imprint from the past. So an example of that might be, imagine you're in the school cafeteria and you drop your tray and all the food and the plate smashes and everyone cheers, way! And in that moment there's fear. You see everyone look at you, there's shame and there's fear comes up in the system. That's a survival response of the nervous system to try and protect you in that perhaps unsafe feeling environment. But that survival response isn't allowed to complete in that moment because you can't really let go or express of your shame or fear in that moment. You have to freeze up. You have to block that response and just pretend nothing has happened and act cool and just walk out the room as quickly as possible, right? And that is an example of that would have left an imprint on your nervous system because you didn't feel safe to fully allow the shame and fear and the survival response to come up. You had to block it and it would have left an imprint. And so maybe the next time you're in that cafeteria, maybe you'll feel a bit more tense. That imprint might start to come alive again within you. And this is really what trauma is. It's like a part of us from the past that was frozen. It was some survival response that came up that couldn't complete and froze and is then stuck in our body. So it's a physiological thing. The actual energy of the survival response has to be pushed down into the body, into the nerves, the muscles, the fascia, the tissues, where it's stored as a kind of a latent readiness. And it's kind of unconsciously looping, looking for threats, as if it was still stuck in that moment, as if you were still stuck in that cafeteria, feeling embarrassed. You're then 10, 20 years later, that part of you is still there, stuck and frozen, feeling as if it's still stuck in that cafeteria. So then it comes, okay, what do we do? These frozen parts of us that are looping are kind of causing problems in our lives. Maybe you can never go to a cafeteria again, right? Would be that's a humorous example, but a lot of these trauma patterns cause a lot of difficulties. It means we have problems with intimacy. We might have addiction issues, compulsive behaviors. We're perfectionist. There's infinite ways. Almost all of the panoply of sort of human suffering can be linked back to trauma in some way or another. So when it comes to starting to heal these parts of us, the top-down approach isn't enough. The actual root of the issue lies in the energy frozen and stuck in the body that's looking to be released and to complete its cycle and to get you to safety where it can then relax. So when we just work at the cognitive level, just reframing beliefs and narratives, you can do that all day long and it won't do very much to actually shift that energy that's in the body, in the nervous system, right? The nervous system still feels like it's stuck in the cafeteria, and whatever mental gymnastics you play, it won't ever relax until you go back to that moment, to that part of you that's frozen and stuck in that moment, and give it what it needs. So help it to feel safe, allow it to come forward, feel it all the way through, let that shame and fear come up and be felt and processed, and then it can relax. So this is the importance of that bottom-up approach, because there's no way out but through, essentially. There is no trick you can play. There's no mental gymnastics you can do. There's no pill you can take. There's no philosophy you can adopt. There's no yoga posture you can take. There's nothing that you can do that will substitute going to meet this part of you that is stuck and giving it what it needs, whether that's resourcing it, feeling it, talking to it, listening to what it has to say, letting it discharge. That's the only way it's ever going to actually relax. And then it integrates back into you. It doesn't just sort of disappear. It's you're reintegrating that energy, that shame, that fear back into you. And then you end up feeling more whole and complete. And then any thought patterns that may have been associated with it, that with the top-down approach you would have been trying to manipulate. It's like, okay, let's reframe that belief, let's reframe that narrative. When the energy that's underpinning them is released, is integrated back into you, then those thought patterns, they just relax and dissolve by themselves because there's no reason for them to be there. And in fact, this is one interesting thing, the top-down approach of getting into our head and trying to figure out the solution intellectually or rationally figure out why I'm feeling this way or that way. Really, that's just actually unconsciously a way of escaping out of the body. Because it can be very unpleasant to be in the body where all these stuck, frozen parts of us are stored, right? It's difficult to go into there. It feels very uncomfortable. And so we come up with all sorts of ways to attempt to address our problems without actually meeting them, right? And those kind of top-down approaches, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, are ways that we tend to sort of bypass the body and try and resolve these issues in the body without actually going there. But by far the best and most direct way is through. Now, of course, you don't want to do this all at once. It's not a macho, hardcore, aggressive thing. This is very much about bringing safety to these parts of you, which felt unsafe in the first place, which is why they froze up. So it's bringing safety to let them relax, melt a little bit so they can start to move again. That energy can start to flow, and that frozen traumatic energy becomes just a more fluid life force moving through you. And then as you're just feeling and processing that bit by bit, your nervous system capacity increases to be able to take on more and more and more of these frozen parts and integrate them. So in my own journey, I used to be an alcoholic. That was because there was a huge amount of like anger and sadness and shame and stress and anxiety sort of trapped in my body. It was so tense when I drank, just it all relaxed. And that was the only time it would relax, was when I had a drink. So I got addicted to it. But as I started to learn to meet these frozen, stuck parts of myself, it felt like there were fires going out in the body. It was like, they started relaxing by themselves without needing to actually drink any alcohol. So you're getting what you actually need. That's the healing you're really after. It's like, these parts of you can just relax and let go. And you suddenly realize maybe your whole life you've gone with like some clench in the heart, in the chest. And you don't even know it's there because it's so ubiquitous. It's like the background noise of your consciousness. But then one day it just finally releases. And you realize that whole time, everything you did, maybe you were going to yoga, maybe you went to relationships, maybe you're doing all kinds of therapies to try and help yourself feel better. What you wanted all along was none of that. It was you just wanted that part of you to let go. It's so funny and tragic. Many of the things we do in our lives are just ways of escaping or trying to fix these frozen stuck parts of ourselves that feel so uncomfortable. And we can spend decades building businesses, families, relationships, all on the basis of trying to escape this feeling. And really, we just need the support and the skill to be able to meet ourselves directly. And it's a lot quicker path. I'll promise you that much. So I hope that helps. And I've got some resources around this stuff on my website. I've got a big toolkit of nervous system regulation techniques that can be very helpful, all kinds of different things in there. And some stuff on my blog and my YouTube channel. I've got other ways of videos of how you can start to actually practically do this stuff, do this work. Okay, take care, folks.